Some stories don't just scare you for a moment. They find a way under your skin, and they stay there. They become the whisper your mind replays when you're all alone, the shadow you catch in the corner of your eye that makes your heart hammer against your ribs, the kind of chill that has nothing to do with the temperature of the room. Tonight, we have 3 stories that are more than just tales. They're experiences, and they will leave you shaken. These aren't stories about monsters in some faraway land. They're about the terror that waits in familiar places, in the homes we're supposed to trust, and the institutions we try to forget. So prepare yourself for haunted asylums and mysterious presences that feel terrifyingly real, because the most frightening horrors are the ones that could happen to you, the ones that make you second-guess the safety of your own walls and the reliability of your own mind. These are the stories that stick with you long after they're over. Our first tale is about a presence that was never invited and never truly left. It's about how a dream home, a place that's meant for new beginnings, can curdle into a prison of sleepless nights and creeping dread. It's about that simple, terrifying realization that you are not alone, even when you're sure you are. Liam and Chloe had spent years saving up for their forever home. They didn't want some sterile new build in a crowded suburb. They wanted a place with character, with history, a place with a soul. They found it on a winding country road, 20 minutes outside the nearest town. It was an old farmhouse from the late 1800s, with a wide, welcoming porch and windows that seemed to gaze out over the rolling hills like patient, knowing eyes. The price was almost too good to be true. The realtor casually mentioned a foreclosure that the previous owners had left in a hurry. To Liam and Chloe, it was a dream. Sure, the house needed work, but they were young, in love, and full of that kind of optimism that only sees potential, never peril. The first few weeks were a happy blur of activity, tearing up old carpets, painting walls, filling the quiet rooms with laughter and the sound of hammers. It was during these early days that the little things started. A misplaced tool would turn up in a room they hadn't even been in. A hammer left on a workbench in the barn would somehow be on the kitchen counter. They'd laugh it off, blaming it on moving brain, that exhaustion that makes you forgetful. It was just easier than thinking about any other possibility. The first real shiver of unease came from their dog, Buster. He was a golden retriever, usually a whirlwind of affection, but he became quiet. He'd stop at the doorway to the master bedroom and just whine softly, the fur on his neck standing on end. He refused to go in, no matter how much they tried to coax him. At night, he stopped sleeping at the foot of their bed. Instead, he'd lie in the hallway, facing their closed door, like he was standing guard. Then the sounds started. At first, they were faint, the kind of groans you expect from an old house settling, a floorboard creaking upstairs when they were both downstairs, a soft thud from the attic in the middle of the night. But the sounds grew more distinct, more purposeful. One evening, while they were watching a movie, a clear, sharp rap echoed from the inside of the pantry door. They paused the movie, listened, nothing. Liam opened the door and found only shelves of canned food. Another night, Chloe woke up to what sounded like a child humming a simple, tuneless melody from the end of the upstairs hallway. She woke Liam up, but by then it was gone. "You were dreaming," he whispered, pulling her close. But Chloe knew she'd been wide awake. The feeling of being watched began subtly. A prickle on the back of your neck while doing dishes that makes you spin around to find an empty room. But it grew, becoming this constant, oppressive weight. Chloe felt it most in the kitchen. She'd be chopping vegetables and would be overwhelmed with the certainty that someone was watching her from the dark tree line of the backyard. Liam felt it in the barn, a cold, cavernous space. He'd be working and suddenly feel a piercing cold spot, followed by the absolute conviction that someone was standing right behind him. Their relationship started to fray. Sleep deprivation made them irritable, and constant fear wore down their patience. Accusations started flying. "You're just imagining things," Liam would snap after Chloe heard another phantom footstep. "You're not listening to me. I know what I heard," she'd shoot back, her voice trembling. The house that was meant to bring them together was driving them apart, isolating them in their own private hells. The breaking point came on a cold Tuesday in October. Liam was in the basement, fixing a leaky pipe. The cellar was damp and stone-walled with a dirt floor. As he worked, he noticed a section of the wall looked different. The mortar was newer, clumsy. Curiosity won out over his unease. He grabbed a crowbar and started prying at the stones. They came loose easily, revealing a dark, hollow space behind them, a hidden room no bigger than a closet that had been sealed away. The air that drifted out was stale, with a faint, sweetish smell of decay. Using his phone's flashlight, Liam peered inside. The space was empty, except for a small, wooden crate in the middle of the dirt floor. His heart was pounding. He reached in, his hand shaking, and dragged the crate out. He pried the lid open. Inside, on a bed of yellowed fabric, was a collection of objects that made his blood run cold. A lock of blonde hair tied with a faded blue ribbon, a small porcelain doll with a missing eye, and a series of old 19th century photographs. He picked one up. It was a stern-looking couple standing in front of that very farmhouse. He picked up another. It was a little girl, maybe 7 years old, with long blonde hair and a serious expression, holding the same doll that was now in the crate. The last photo was of the girl alone, but her face had been violently scratched out. Beneath the photos was a small, leather-bound diary. The ink was faded, the handwriting a frantic scrawl. Liam could only make out a few phrases. "She will not listen, sees things that are not there, the watcher in the woods, whispers in the walls." The final entry was dated June 12th, 1892. "Sealed her away. It is the only way to quiet the house. God forgive us." A deafening crash from upstairs sent Liam scrambling to his feet. He dropped the crate and sprinted up the stairs, yelling Chloe's name. He found her in the kitchen, pale and shaking, staring at the floor. Every single cabinet and drawer was hanging wide open. Plates, bowls, and silverware were strewn everywhere. Nothing was broken, just emptied, violently. "I was right here," Chloe whispered. "I was standing right at the sink, and it just happened, all at once, like an explosion." Liam looked at the terror in Chloe's eyes, then at the mess. The humming she'd heard, the watcher she'd felt, the child's doll. He thought of the diary, sealed her away. It is the only way to quiet the house. They hadn't bought an empty house. They had bought a tomb. and by opening that wall, Liam realized he had just broken the seal. They weren't being haunted by a memory. They were being tormented by a presence that had been trapped, a presence that was now free. And as the sun began to set, casting long, grasping shadows across the floor, they both understood with a chilling certainty that the house was finally, truly awake, and it was not happy. If this is the kind of darkness you enjoy, consider subscribing. You won't want to miss what's coming next, because the night is far from over. For our second story, we're going to a place where suffering wasn't just an event, it was the foundation. We're traveling to the abandoned halls of the Blackwood Pines Asylum, where the pain of the past is baked into the very walls. We're calling it Blackwood Pines, but its history is a blend of real institutions. It opened in 1911, a massive building designed with the hopeful but naive idea that beautiful architecture could help cure troubled minds. During the Great Depression, it housed over 4,000 patients, nearly 3 times what it was built for. It became less of a hospital and more of a warehouse for human misery. Overcrowding and understaffing led to brutal treatments, ice baths, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies. Blackwood Pines was shut down in 1987 after its horrors were exposed. The living left, but the stories say the dead remained. Our story comes from 4 friends, Maya, Ben, Chloe, and Liam, a group of urban explorers. They were drawn to the beauty of decay. To them, ghost stories were just stories. Blackwood Pines was their Mount Everest. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they slipped through the rusted fence one starless Saturday night, their hearts pounding with adrenaline, not fear. The moment they stepped inside, the air changed. It got heavy, thick, and cold. The silence was absolute, broken only by the crunch of glass under their boots. Their flashlights cut through the dark, revealing scenes of frozen chaos, peeling paint, overturned gurneys, and in one room, a single child-sized rocking chair swaying in a breeze that wasn't there. Creepy, Liam muttered, the skeptic of the group. Must be a draft. They pushed deeper, their confidence slowly eroding. They found the patient wards, with long rows of small rooms, the insides of the doors covered in scratch marks. They saw the communal showers stained with grime, and the massive kitchen where rusted pots still lay on the counters, as if everyone had vanished mid-meal. The first impossible thing happened in the hydrotherapy wing. This was a room of nightmares, lined with enormous coffin-like tubs. Ben, the group's historian, was explaining how patients were forcibly submerged in ice-cold or scalding water. As he spoke, a loud, metallic clang echoed through the room. They all spun around. When one of the heavy iron lids on a tub, a lid that would take 2 people to move, had just slammed shut. "Okay," Chloe whispered. "There's no draft in here. The windows are boarded up." Liam, though visibly shaken, tried for a logical answer. It was probably just balanced weirdly. Our footsteps knocked it loose. But his explanation sounded weak, even to him. They decided to head for the infamous 3rd-floor psychiatric ward, C Wing, where the most violent patients were kept. The stories claimed this was the heart of the haunting. The air grew colder as they climbed the stairs. The 3rd floor felt different. The oppressive feeling was stronger here, charged with anger and despair. It was Maya who saw him first. She was looking down a long, dark corridor when a figure emerged from the shadows at the far end. A tall, thin man in what looked like an old orderly's uniform. He just stood there, perfectly still. "Guys," Maya breathed, grabbing Ben's arm. "There's someone down there." They all aimed their flashlights down the hall. It was empty. "There was a man," Maya insisted, panic rising in her voice. "He was right there." "You're just letting the place get to you," Liam said, but his own eyes were darting nervously into the darkness. That's when they heard it, a faint, dragging sound from one of the sealed rooms to their right. The sound of something heavy being scraped across concrete. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. It was slow, deliberate, and it was getting closer to the door. They stood frozen. Then a low, guttural moan came from inside the room, a sound of pure agony that vibrated up through their feet. That was it. Their skepticism vanished, replaced by raw, animal terror. "We need to go," Ben said, his voice tight. "Now." They turned and ran. As they did, the sounds behind them erupted. Doors down the hall slammed open and shut. The scraping grew faster, and above it all, a blood-curdling scream tore out from the room they'd been standing next to. They didn't stop until they were back on the first floor, lungs burning. As they scrambled for the exit, Chloe tripped. Her flashlight skittered across the floor, its beam landing on an old patient ledger lying open on the reception desk. Oddly, one page was clean, as if it had been recently turned. On that page was a single entry for a patient admitted to C-Wing in 1948. The name was Arthur Finch. Reason for admission: extreme aggression and religious mania. And at the bottom, a note in a different handwriting read, "Patient believes he is being tormented by a demon he calls the Watcher. Expired in solitary confinement. May God have mercy on his soul." A cold dread washed over them. The Watcher, the same name from the Farmhouse diary. A coincidence or something else entirely? Suddenly, the main entrance doors slammed shut with a deafening boom that shook the whole building. They were plunged into total darkness. There was only the sound of their own ragged breathing. Then, from the darkness right in front of them, a voice whispered. It was dry and raspy, full of ancient malice. "You're not leaving," it said. Panic. They scrambled, fumbling for their phones. Ben got his flashlight on. Its weak beam showed Liam pounding uselessly on the doors and Chloe sobbing in a corner. And Maya? Maya was just standing in the middle of the lobby, perfectly still, with her back to them. "Maya?" Ben called out. "Let's go. We have to find another way out." She didn't move. Ben took a step closer. As his light hit her, she slowly began to turn around. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and empty, and when she spoke, it wasn't her voice. It was the same dry, rasping whisper. "There is no other way out," it said, as a sickening, triumphant smile spread across Maya's face. Our final story is, in some ways, the most unsettling. It doesn't happen in a rundown asylum or a house with a violent past. It happens in a childhood home. It's about going back to the past and discovering the past isn't finished with you. It's about how fragile memory can be and how the foundations of our lives might be built on secrets we were never meant to find. Julia's mother passed away, and a week later, Julia found herself driving back to the house she grew up in. She hadn't been back in nearly a decade. Her relationship with her mother had been complicated, loving but distant, strained by things left unsaid. Now it was her job to sort through a lifetime of belongings, pack up the memories, and sell the house. The moment she unlocked the door, the smell hit her. That unique scent of her childhood home, lemon polish, old books, and her mother's faint perfume. The house was a time capsule from the 1990s. The same floral sofa, the same family photos, the same ticking grandfather clock. It was all so familiar, yet it felt wrong, like a museum of a life no longer being lived. The first few days were mechanical. Julia sorted everything into piles: keep, donate, trash. But as she worked, a strange feeling began to grow. A sense of being watched, not by a person, but by the house itself. It started small. A door she knew she'd closed would be open. A photo she'd placed face down would be turned over. She blamed it on grief, her mind playing tricks. But the feeling grew stronger. At night, the house came alive. The old, familiar creaks of her childhood were now sharp, deliberate noises. A clear footstep in the attic. The sound of a marble rolling across the hardwood floor upstairs. One night, she was woken by a sound from her old bedroom. It was the faint, tinny music of a wind-up music box. Her music box, the one her father gave her for her 6th birthday. It played Für Elise. She crept down the hall. The door to her old room was slightly ajar, the music coming from inside. With a trembling hand, she pushed the door open. The room was empty. The music box sat on her dresser, lid closed, silent. The event shook her, but it also sparked a flicker of a memory. A feeling of fear connected to that music box. A memory of hiding in her closet, clutching it, while her parents argued downstairs. She couldn't remember why they were fighting, only the terror she felt. The next day, she decided to tackle the attic, a dusty space full of furniture covered in white sheets, like a graveyard of household ghosts. In a far corner, she found a small, locked trunk. It was her father's. He'd always told her it was just full of boring work papers. She found the key in her mother's jewelry box. She hesitated, feeling like she was trespassing. But it felt like the house was pushing her, daring her to uncover its secrets. She opened the trunk. It wasn't full of work papers. It was filled with letters, hundreds of them, all from her mother addressed to her father, written while they were supposedly all living together in that same house. She picked one up. It was dated a few months before her 6th birthday. "David," it began, "I can't do this anymore. She isn't getting better. She still talks to him. Last night I found her in her room, talking to the empty corner. She says he's her secret friend. This isn't a phase, David. This is something else. Something that was here long before we were. I'm scared of what she might be letting into our home." Julia's blood ran cold. She tore through the letters. They painted a horrifying picture of her own childhood. A little girl, her tormented by a presence only she could see. An entity she called Mr. Grin. "He makes her do things," another letter read. "She drew a picture of our family today. Next to me, there was another figure, tall, with long, spindly arms and a wide, grinning mouth. She said it was Mr. Grin, and he was holding a knife." The final letter was short, the handwriting shaky. I'm taking her to Dr. Matthews. He says there are treatments, ways to make her forget. It's the only way. We have to make her forget him." Julia dropped the letters. Her idyllic childhood wasn't forgotten. It was a horror story she had been forced to forget. The headaches, the doctor's visits, it was all coming back, not as memories, but as echoes of a trauma her mind had buried. Suddenly, the grandfather clock in the hall began to chime, but it didn't stop at 12, 13, 14, 15. It kept going, the chimes growing louder, overlapping into a maddening, discordant noise. Then from upstairs she heard it again, the innocent, tinkling melody of the music box. As if in a trance, she stood up and walked to the stairs. She felt a pull, a compulsion that wasn't her own. She climbed the stairs, the music growing louder, drawing her toward her old bedroom. She pushed the door open. The room was dark, but she could see a figure sitting on the edge of her bed. A little girl in a white nightgown, her back to the door. It was her. A younger version of herself, holding the music box. "He's been waiting for you," the little girl said, without turning around. "He missed you." From the darkest corner of the room, a shape began to unfold itself from the shadows. It was tall, impossibly tall and thin, its limbs long and spidery. Julia couldn't see its face in the gloom, but she could see the one feature that gave him his name. A wide, fixed, ear-to-ear grin, a slash of white in the darkness. "Hello, Julia," a voice whispered from the grinning mouth, a voice she recognized from the deepest, most hidden part of her soul. "It's time to come play again." The little girl on the bed turned her head. Her face was a pale, blank canvas, and stretched across it was the same horrifying, impossibly wide grin. The lights are on, the doors are locked, but the stories are in your head now. They've found a new place to live. You can try to rationalize the sounds in the quiet house, or the figures you almost see in the dark, but they'll stay there, coiled in the back of your mind, waiting. Because the most terrifying part of any story isn't the monster. It's the question that lingers long after the tale is told. The question is never, are the stories real? It's, are you safe from becoming one yourself? Which of these stories will stay with you when the lights go out? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.